All right, so Unit 8 is our last unit, and it is about the westward expansion, conflicts between the U.S. government and Native Americans, immigration, and the rise of the Populist Party. So, kind of all over the place. So, um, as we went west with things like the Transcontinental Railroad, which was finished in 1869, um, we did continue. We had conflicts, more and more conflicts with Native Americans. So every time we would have one conflict, it would just kind of escalate between the two. So there was Sand Creek, which was in 1864, where the U.S. military slaughtered 400 Native Americans, and in retaliation, you have the Fetterman Massacre, which is this, in which 81 U.S. soldiers were massacred in December of 1866. Then you have in 1876, you have the Battle of Little Bighorn, where is known as Custer's Last Stand, in which the entire 7th Cavalry was slaughtered by 3,000 Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribe. And again, it's, back and forth, back and forth. This is Chief Sitting Bull. This is Chief Joseph, and he led the Nez Perce, and he saw these different tribes getting moved to reservations. And not that he wanted to go to a reservation, but all of these tribes that were fighting back, their people were still getting killed, and they were still moving to a reservation. So when they were like, "You guys are moving," he was like, "Where are we going?" "Kansas." "All right, guys, we're going to Kansas." And so he's known as having the most masterful retreat in history, because he just took his people and peacefully moved to Kansas. So Wounded Knee is this is the last major conflict between Native Americans and the U.S. military. So when you look at the PDF, you can actually click on this. This is a link that tells you more about Wounded Knee. So the U.S. government passed the Dawes Assimilation Act, and the Dawes Assimilation Act said that Native Americans could get land for their own, but they had some stipulations on that land. They had to assimilate into white culture, meaning they had to dress like whites, they had to cut their hair, they had to adopt Christian names, so to speak. So they had to go by, they couldn't be Sitting Bull or Crazy Horse or Chief Bigfoot. They had to be James or Charles or William or John, something along those lines. And they had to speak English. So they had to kind of let go of their Native American culture. And so one of the things that they did was a ghost dance, and where they believed that they could commune with their ancestors. And so it's kind of like they would dance, and it was almost like a Ouija board, and they could talk to their ancestors, if you will. And so they're told basically they can't do this anymore because they're supposed to assimilate, and white folks don't do this. And well, they decided they were going to do it anyway. Military rolls up, and they're like, "What are you guys doing?" And they disarmed the Native Americans. And there happened to be a deaf Native American who didn't understand what was happening. And a gun goes off, and a slaughter ensues. And we know at least 90 Native Americans were killed. Some estimates are more like 300 were killed. So this is, again, the aftermath of Wounded Knee. And again, this is an example of the Dawes Assimilation or Dawes Severalty Act, and how they had to dress to assimilate, and they had to go to schools to assimilate. So the Populist Party came out of farmers trying to kind of get ahead after the Civil War, and so their party platform is they wanted a graduated income tax, so that basically the more money you made, the more you got taxed, which is what we have today. direct election of senators. We have that again today. That is now the 17th Amendment to the Constitution. Single term president and vice president. We do not have that. Secret ballot. We do not have that. So if you are a member of Congress, every time you vote, that is part of public record. Initiative, people could introduce bills by petition. That does happen, but it's very rare and it's pretty difficult. Other things was federal loan program, and that government should own telegraph, telephone, and railroads and operate. They also wanted recall referendum, and meaning like if someone had been elected and they were doing a poor job, that they could file for a recall and potentially remove them from office. So the last time a recall election happened was in 2021, 2022, and that was Governor Gavin Newsom in California was recalled. The people of California had a few million, it was at least a million, sign a petition to recall him. And they recalled him because they did not like how he handled COVID-19 during the pandemic. And so he ran, and he is a white male Democrat, and he ran against, in the recall election, he ran against a guy named Larry Elder, who was a black male Republican. And he did win his recall election. And so the last would be immigration. And so at a height of immigration, we had about 1 million people coming to America a year from all over the world. And they all came in, like if you came from Europe, you came into Ellis Island, which is in New York City. And if you came from Asia, you came into Angel Island, which is on the West Coast, which is up around San Francisco. So you came into the country, and you didn't just came in. You came in and you had to be checked. You had to have documentation. You had to be checked for diseases, things like that. So there's always been a immigration protocol to check the people who were coming to the country, so we knew who was coming in, and trying to prevent any kind of communicable diseases or things like that. And again, immigration control. We've had quotas on immigration throughout the years. In the 1920s, we have very, very strict quotas, and those quotas stay in place for about 25 years. And that is the end of this class as far as content.